Welcome, beloved. Sit down and open your heart, because today we're diving into one of the deepest questions of all time. Why does God choose some people and not others? Why Moses? Why Noah? Why Abraham, Esther, Mary, or David? And could it be you next? Take a moment to reflect. Do you feel something stirring within you? Something pulling at your soul that you can't explain? That's no coincidence. God doesn't call the qualified. He qualifies the called. But let's break this down, step by step, because you need to understand why some are chosen, how they are chosen, and what it truly means to be chosen by the Creator of the universe. Let me remind you of one truth. God's decisions are not random. He doesn't look at the outward appearance, the titles, or the fame. He looks at the heart. You see, when God scans the earth, He's not searching for perfection. He's searching for those who are willing, faithful, and courageous. He chooses people who will listen, even if their voice trembles. He chooses people who are willing to stand up, even when their knees shake. And most importantly, He chooses people who will lean on Him, not their own understanding. Now, let's go deeper into the lives of Moses, Noah, and David. Let their stories awaken something in you, because you might just see yourself in them. Moses, the reluctant leader. When you think of Moses, what comes to mind? A towering figure parting the Red Sea? The one who climbed Mount Sinai to receive the Ten Commandments? Let me tell you, Moses didn't start there. His journey began in fear, doubt, and brokenness. Moses was born into chaos. As a Hebrew baby in Egypt, his life was under immediate threat because Pharaoh had ordered the killing of all male Hebrew infants. His mother, driven by faith, placed him in a basket and sent him down the Nile, entrusting her son's life to God. God's hand was already on him, even as a helpless baby. He was raised in Pharaoh's palace, surrounded by wealth and privilege, but deep inside, Moses knew he was different. He wasn't Egyptian, he was Hebrew. That identity began to burn in his heart, and when he saw an Egyptian beating a Hebrew slave, Moses acted out of anger and killed the man. That one act changed everything. Moses fled into the wilderness, leaving behind the palace and the people. He spent 40 years in Midian, a forgotten man. He became a shepherd, a far cry from his royal upbringing. Can you imagine what he must have felt during those years? Perhaps he thought his purpose was over. But listen closely. God does His best work in the wilderness. At the age of 80, when Moses probably thought his life was winding down, God appeared to him in a burning bush. God said, "Moses, I have heard the cries of my people, and I am sending you to set them free." Exodus 3:10. Moses responded like many of us would. "Who am I that I should go?" Exodus 3:11. Here's the lesson. Moses was chosen not because he was confident, but because he was willing to listen. God didn't need Moses to be perfect. He needed Moses to be obedient. And what about you? Are you willing to listen when God calls you out of your comfort zone? Write it down in the comments. Lord, I will go where you send me. Noah, the faithful builder. Noah's story is one of faith in the face of ridicule. In a time when humanity had become utterly corrupt, Noah stood out. The Bible says Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord. Genesis 6:8. Why? Because he was a righteous man, blameless among his generation, and he walked faithfully with God. But let's not romanticize Noah's life. Imagine living in a world where everyone around you mocks God, indulges in sin, and laughs at righteousness. Noah wasn't chosen because he was better than others. He was chosen because he stayed faithful when it wasn't popular. God gave Noah a command that seemed absurd. Build an ark. A massive ark. Prepare for a flood in a land that likely hadn't seen rain in years, if ever. Noah could have said, "Lord, this doesn't make sense." Instead, he obeyed. He spent 120 years building that ark, enduring the mockery of those who thought he was crazy. When the flood came, Noah's obedience saved not just his life, but his family and the future of humanity. His story reminds us that faith is not about understanding every detail of God's plan. It's about trusting his heart. So let me ask you, what is God asking you to build in faith? It might not be an ark of wood, but it could be an ark of forgiveness, an ark of perseverance, or an ark of courage. Write in the comments, "Lord, I will build what you ask." Because obedience, even when it doesn't make sense, is what sets the chosen apart. David, the shepherd. David's story is one of the most remarkable in the Bible. A shepherd boy, the youngest of 8 brothers, overlooked by everyone but God. When the prophet Samuel came to anoint the next king of Israel, David wasn't even considered. But God doesn't look at what people look at. He looks at the heart, 1 Samuel 16:7. David was likely just a teenager when he was anointed king. Think about that. He was a nobody in the eyes of the world, but in God's eyes he was a king in the making. Why? Because David had a heart that sought after God, even in the mundane tasks of shepherding. But David's journey to the throne wasn't easy. He spent years running from Saul, living in caves and enduring betrayal. Being chosen doesn't mean avoiding pain. It means having a purpose greater than the pain. David's story also reminds us that being chosen doesn't mean being perfect. He made mistakes, big ones, but his heart always returned to God in repentance. That's the difference between someone chosen by the world and someone chosen by God. Do you have the heart of David? Are you willing to serve faithfully, even in obscurity? Declare it in the comments. Lord, I will seek your heart. Because the chosen ones are those who pursue God, not their own glory. When God looks at the earth, he doesn't see people the way the world sees them. He doesn't look for wealth, titles, or perfect records. He searches for hearts that are open, ready, and willing. He doesn't ask for perfection. He asks for faith. So, again, let me ask, could it be you? Some of you might feel unworthy. You're thinking about your mistakes, your flaws, your doubts. Maybe you're thinking, how could God choose someone like me? But let me remind you, Moses was a fugitive. Noah lived in a world so corrupt that even he must have questioned humanity. David was an overlooked shepherd boy, dismissed by his own family. And yet, God chose them. Here's the truth. God doesn't call the qualified. He qualifies the called. He's not looking for those who have it all together. He's looking for those who are willing to let him put them together. If you've been waiting for a sign, this is it. Stop doubting. Stop hiding. God is still choosing people today, and his eyes may already be on you. What does God look for in those he chooses? There are 3 key qualities. Willingness. God can't work with someone who isn't willing. Willingness is the soil where faith grows. Are you ready to say, "Yes, Lord"? If so, write it in the comments. Lord, I am willing. Faith. Faith doesn't mean understanding everything. It means trusting that God knows what he's doing. Abraham had faith to leave his home. Noah had faith to build an ark. Moses had faith to return to Egypt. And you? You need faith to take the first step. Humility. The chosen ones don't exalt themselves. They let God lift them up in His timing. Humility says, "Lord, not my will, but yours." That's the kind of heart God uses. To be chosen by God is to step into a life of meaning. It's about realizing that every trial, every tear, every triumph has been preparing you for something greater. Moses was chosen to lead an entire nation out of bondage. Noah was chosen to preserve humanity. David was chosen to bring a kingdom closer to God. And you? God's purpose for you is just as vital. It might not look like parting the Red Sea or building an ark, but your calling is no less significant. It could be raising a child to know God, starting a ministry, or simply being a light in your workplace. Whatever it is, know this: you were made for this moment. But let me warn you, being chosen isn't easy. It's not about comfort. It's about commitment. Moses faced rejection. Noah endured ridicule. David was hunted by Saul. Being chosen means carrying a weight that others can't understand. You will face challenges. You will be misunderstood. You might even feel isolated. But here's the good news: you are never alone. God's presence goes with His chosen ones. He doesn't call you without equipping you. He doesn't send you without walking beside you. If you're ready to carry that weight, declare it. Lord, I will walk with you, no matter the cost. Because the weight of being chosen is nothing compared to the reward of fulfilling your purpose. God's love doesn't mean you won't face trials. In fact, being chosen often means walking through the fire. But here's the promise: the fire will refine you, not destroy you. God's love will carry you through the storms and bring you out stronger on the other side. So let me ask you, are you ready to feel that love? To let it change you, strengthen you, and guide you? Write it in the comments. Lord, let me feel your love. Here's something you need to understand. Being chosen isn't about you. It's about what God will do through you. Moses wasn't chosen for his own benefit. He was chosen to set others free. Noah wasn't chosen for personal safety. He was chosen to preserve humanity. David wasn't chosen for his own glory. He was chosen to lead a nation closer to God. And you? Your calling isn't just about you. It's about the lives you will touch, the hope you will bring, the light you will shine. Being chosen means being a servant, not a ruler. It means putting God's purpose above your own desires. Now, beloved, let me leave you with this. The world is waiting for you. Yes, you might feel small. You might feel unworthy. But God doesn't see you the way you see yourself. He sees the potential, the purpose, the destiny He placed within you before you were even born. So today, make the choice. Say yes to God's call. Stop doubting. Stop hesitating. The same God who called Moses, Noah, and David is calling you. The same God who parted the Red Sea, shut the mouths of lions, and raised Jesus from the dead is with you. Declare it now. Lord, here I am. Send me. Because the world doesn't need more doubters, complainers, or bystanders. It needs you. And God is ready to work through you in ways you can't even imagine. Go now, chosen one. Shine your light. Build your ark. Fight your battles. And never forget, God doesn't call the perfect. He calls the willing, and you, my friend, are willing.